Welcome back. So the purpose of this flight was to take the aircraft up to around about sort of 4,000 or 5,000 feet, and just be sort of a little bit more aggressive on the climb, just to see how the temperatures would hold up, and then level off at that altitude, and just keep that same power setting from climb, and just see how the airspeed would pick up and whether the cooling would improve going faster, and just basically just to level off for a while and just see how things were with this improved cooling and the thermostat open. So that's what my plan was here. So I was just doing a normal climb out similar to the previous flights. Yeah, I had pretty nice weather, as you can see. It was a little bit bumpy down low, but once I got up a bit higher it smoothed out again. So, and I'm kind of getting used to that. And there you can see I've got that thermostat hooked up there, or that thermometer hooked up there, 102/64 there on the radiator climbing out. So obviously nothing's really flowing around there yet, because I've got that. I'm still using the front cooling loop, because I think I still need that amount of cooling right now, at least through this testing, until I figure out exactly how well that the radiator setup's performing now with the thermostat opening up. So I don't want to change too many variables all at once. But yeah, the cooling is definitely better. I've got definitely more ability, but there's probably, I would say, possibly some more improvements that I can make. In just evaluating what the flow is doing there through the cowling and all that sort of stuff, and potentially the radiator that I have in there, even though it's working better now, is maybe not big enough. When I actually selected that radiator, I selected it based upon the amount of room I had in there, and I made it, it was custom made, and I made it thick enough that the overall volume of it, of the core, would match what the overall volume was in the car. But again, in the car you're not running at these high power settings for quite so long, so potentially need to scale up this radiator later to give an additional amount of cooling, and it may be a case of just scale that up a little bit, and then you don't need the front setup. And as you can see, I'm climbing out there reasonably well. I mean, it's not a big rocket ship by any means just yet, because with all the extra weight and stuff on board, that we're going to hopefully be able to shed there. Moving into production, things will improve in terms of performance. But if you think about what we've got here and how heavy this aircraft is, and the spaciousness and stuff in it, if we can just bring the weight down, and that, then it'll have the capability of a nice long distance cross country cruiser. It's not going to be performing as well as a rocket ship type, fast RV or something like that. 196/185, so that's about where I'd expect it to sort of be, and I think at this point the thermostat's obviously kicked on there. So 10-degree drop across there means it's working pretty well, that radiator, so it's flowing nicely, and it's also getting the cooling from the cooling air. So yeah, I just continued the climb up there, and as I said, I was sort of planning for about 5,000 foot to level out. And I'm not sure how well you can see it, but I've actually got some tufts hanging off the trailing edge of that new outlet there that you can see in the center of the screen, just slightly left of center. And those are pulling backwards nicely, so I'm pretty sure there's good airflow coming straight out of that cowling vent there now. And I'm not seeing any sort of weird stuff going on where the tufts are moving down or sucking back inward or anything like that. So I think the air's flowing nicely around that. And as I mentioned before, if the air's pulling out of there really well, creating a good vacuum under the cowling, that should potentially reduce the or create a suction or a vacuum at the inlet scoop, and potentially reduce any drag that was creating before if there was a pressure build-up on there. So yeah, it was nice. As you can see, things have stabilized here once we're at altitude a little bit, not quite so bumpy. It seems to be the pattern around here. We get the weather and the rain comes through, and then it's windy and stuff after that for a day or half a day or something like that, and then it's nice for about 3 days straight where it's just sort of calm conditions and blue skies. So that's pretty much what we've been experiencing. Alright, so now I'm closing in on 5,000 feet, as you can see, sort of getting up here and getting ready to kind of level off. And yeah, it was beautiful out, really enjoying this flight, and knowing that I didn't have any oil leaks, and my cooling was under control, and I was just about to see what's going on with that. And then all of a sudden you'll see so I started hearing this rattling sound, and the audio, you can actually hear it breaking the squelch there on my mic. That's how loud it was. And you can hear it there. The mic that's playing back in the background on this video is the one from the Garmin camera in the cabin. So I'm hearing this rattling sound, and my first thought is, oh, one of those cowling vents there has come loose and it's rattling around. And obviously you can see in this camera that that's not the case on this side, but it actually sounded like it was coming from the port side, from the left side of the ship, and then to the back there, and it was pretty noisy. And immediately I was thinking, oh, I don't want anything to go through the prop. Fortunately, I had plenty of altitude up here, and I was right close to the airport, so I wasn't too panicked in terms of if it had to dead stick land it here. But I came around and then had a look at the airport there, and as you can see, I'm already starting to descend, and my plan is just to come in and land. Just I don't know what's going on exactly. You can hear it keep breaking the squelch there on the mic. So I started thinking about, okay, I'm at 4,000 feet. I can quite comfortably make a nice landing here on 1.7. So I basically set myself up in the downwind there, and got ready to call tower and just let them know that I was coming in. I still didn't have any idea exactly what it was. I was sort of mindful of not picking up any more speed in case that might aggravate it. I thought it might have been something under the cowling with more air flowing through there that was rattling around or something like that. So, all these different thoughts going through my head of what it might be. And if I just keep everything sort of stable right now, whatever it is that's rattling shouldn't actually come completely loose. And, I should be all right. So, that's what I was doing, and just trying to keep a cool head and fly the airplane.
Over 40 miles 76, turn left at the end, taxi to the terminal via Mike, remain with frequency.
Left at the end of terminal via Mike, stay with you in over 4976.
About off the tower, left at 352 Tango Delta, about a mile and a half to the east at 4,000 feet. I'd like to come in for a full stop landing.
Raptor 352 Tango Delta, enter right midfield downwind, runway 35, report midfield, wind 020 at 3, altimeter 3026.
If it's okay by you, can I just enter a right base and report 3 mile right base for 352 Tango Delta?
Raptor 352 Tango Delta, affirmative, enter right base, runway 35.
Right base, runway 35, we'll report the 3 mile 352 Tango Delta.
So at this point, I was thinking all I got to do is just keep my speed under control in case whatever it is, potentially going to come loose more, from going quicker. And so I was actually, attempting to slow down here a little bit, but at the same time, get ready to put my gear down and all that sort of stuff. And just be mindful of not creating a problem when I don't have one right now, because potentially this is nothing. It's just something rattling around in the cowling or something like that. So you just sort of make sure you don't make things worse by panicking.
But off the tower, Raptor 352 Tango Delta's on a 3 mile right base for 35.
Raptor 352 Tango Delta, not in sight, runway 35, clear to land.
Runway 35, clear to land, 352 Tango Delta.
And while this was going on, I was trying to determine whether the actual sound, had more of a aerodynamic kind of rhythm to it, or whether it was related to the engine and the engine speed or the prop speed. And it sounded to me like it was just basically fairly consistent, although it did get less. As you can hear, it's actually quite less now that I've slowed down a little bit here. It's not breaking the squelch there on my mic quite as much. So it's like, well, at least it's not in the engine as far as I know. Engine or prop, it's not related to that. It's something on the airframe. And so I was feeling a little bit more comfortable that I shouldn't have a problem with the power plant at this point. And it was just, unless of course it was that metal cowling that was flapping around, and if that had gone through the prop, it might have changed my day a little bit. But I was pretty sure, I checked all that when I pre-flighted, and this is the second flight I had it, and there was no signs of the way I taped that in. When I created those cowlings too, I'd also slotted them. 500. I'd also slotted them so they were sort of engaged into the openings that I cut in the cowling, so they weren't just straight taped
1
on.
mile final runway 35.
So anyway, just got it all established here and just did a normal landing. Alright, so safely on the ground, no damage or anything like that, so that's good. But then it was time to start looking to see exactly what was causing that noise. And I actually spent quite a bit of time looking at everything. And, I'd secured a bunch of different things that might have been making a little bit of a noise, but I wasn't, convinced that I had found the problem. So I flew just one trip around the pattern the following day, and actually had the exact same noise right after takeoff, so I immediately came in to land. And I'll show you here shortly exactly what the problem was.
Raptor 352 Tango Delta. Taxi to parking via Alpha.
Taxi to parking via Alpha 352 Tango Delta.
Alright, so conventional thinking would have you think that potentially the reason why I'm getting this problem is something that I've changed recently. So I've changed the cowling, I've got those larger outlets, so you'd be thinking, okay, it's something to do with that, because I wasn't getting this noise before, I had this problem before. So of course, I looked everything around there, and I couldn't find anything that was potentially the problem. And the one place I didn't look was the inlet scoop, and of course on the second flight, I was just more open-minded to what it might be, because I checked everything, and then I thought right away, I know exactly what it is. It's coming from the inlet scoop. There's something going on there. Something's gotten loose there, and it kind of sounded like aluminum sort of banging around or whatever. So anyway, after that flight, I crawled up on the roof there and had a look, and sure enough, the one panel there had actually come loose. So what it is, it's a carbon fiber thin panel there that basically makes up the floor of the inlet scoop there, and the leading edge of it is just lightly bonded into place because there's a parachute strap that runs across there. and that panel needs to be able to break away if the parachute strap gets deployed. And I think what ended up happening with the extra flow going through there, it created such a large vacuum in the inlet scoop there that it was creating such a low pressure there. It was enough to actually suck on that thing hard enough to pull the epoxy bond there on that leading edge free, and then this thing was basically flapping up and down. So while I was editing this video, I realized that I have a camera there that should be able to see this, and actually, sure enough, it can. So here's prior to the noise happening, and just looking at that inlet scoop there during that flight, and then you could see there's the leading edge of it on the right hand side there lifted up, and this is before it completely broke free. And if you just look at it in slow motion, you can see it sort of going up and down there. And then if we jump ahead here to after it had actually broken free, you can see it's up a lot more. So it's broken free all the way across now, and there you can see it's much higher up. So it basically was going up and down at least an inch or more, maybe an inch and a half, and you know, making a racket there every time it hit down on the bottom there, because it was just, you know, carbon on carbon sort of, and you know, carbon fiber has a twanging kind of sound when you hit it on something. So that's what it was. Anyway, interesting problem. So in order to resolve that, I've basically just put a bit of that white tape across there to hold it down, because that'll tear away if that parachute needs to get deployed, and then that'll create a nice, you know, smooth transition there. The air won't be able to get under there, and that should hold it down. But I haven't flown with it since I've done that test, and of course now we're getting the rain again. Yeah, it's the same way I taped in that other panel that blew off. So apparently the way that I'm, you know, bonding those blow-away panels on isn't strong enough. So we'll just stick with the tape now until, you know, we can do a bit more research and figure out exactly how they need to be bonded on in order to handle the forces trying to tear them off. And I think the reason this actually ended up happening was because creating those new outlet scoops have got such a large amount of air flowing out there, and it's created a vacuum in that inlet scoop, which is now creating a massive low pressure there right above that thing and literally trying to lift it up, that lower panel, and that's basically what caused it to tear free. At least that's what I'm thinking, and so that means the cooling's working good. It's flowing really well. So yeah, now I've got a ship that I don't have any leaks. I don't have it. Well, you know, potentially the cooling could still be better. We'll wait and see. But I don't have any oil leaks. I've got good cooling now, and shouldn't have any problems. So as soon as the weather gets better and that, I'll be up in the air again, and then get this thing up to 5,000 feet, level out there, and see how it is in you know, a high-speed level cruise. See how the cooling is, and see what sort of airspeeds and stuff I get. So that'll be good, and then we'll move on from there. So anyway, that's going to be this video. Thanks again for watching. Sorry it was a long one again, but we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.